Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get a Carlisle fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
A humdinger at Brunton Park as United and Stockport will play a thrilling draw that doesn't do either club much good in their push for an automatic promotion place. We review that cracker before looking ahead to this weekend's A595 Derby against Barrow. And I'm sticking to the A595 Derby as the tagline for that one, not the Cumbrian Derby. Because they're not part of Cumbria County Council anymore, are they, Dan? Part of Cumbria. Westmoreland and Furness. That's what they're at now, so there you go. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
It was a belter on Tuesday night, wasn't it?
Proper game of football, that's what that was.
Proper game of football team. Two proper clubs with a great atmosphere. I mean, we'll talk about it in a minute when we review the game, but genuinely, it's weird. As much as that result was disappointing in the sense it's given our chances of a top three place quite a big dent, I still came out of that game feeling really pleased with what I'd seen, really. Did you?
Yeah. I think the second half has maybe reignited a few folk.
Yeah, I think
as in, where's that Carlisle been?
Yeah, definitely. Which we'll talk about how that happened and why it happened in a minute. But we have got a few bits to fit in. We've got a couple of little bits of news. One that broke this morning as well. Just a sad bit of news, but we'll cover that in a minute. But first up, we're going to tell you who the sponsor of the podcast. I mean, you should know by now if you've been listening regularly, but you'll tell you about the sponsor this season, where you can subscribe to the podcast and how to get in contact with us. Fine.
I've got a question.
There you go. Good. Right, Dan, let's get straight into it. News, and up first, the bit of news that broke this morning. It's a sad bit of news, isn't it? Former United captain Nick Anderton, you may well all know that he's been battling cancer for the last about a year or so now, isn't it? I think it's been a while. I think he had his initial treatment, then obviously it didn't quite work, I don't think, and he's been having some seriously heavy treatment over the last few months, and unfortunately he's taken the decision to retire, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's made a statement on Twitter this morning. I do believe that Joy Barton is going to look after him, probably get him coaching or scouting or what have you.
Yeah, it's really, really sad bit of news, isn't it? Because I mean, it sounds like a really horrible, any cancer's horrible, isn't it? But it sounds what he had to go through is pretty gruesome as well. It's not great, is it? So
yeah, he mentioned something about some operation, and he thought it would, but then they discovered that they need to change it, and he just wouldn't get insured to play football after it, I don't think.
Yeah, it's just common sense, isn't it? He'll get a decent payout, I'm sure, in terms of insurance for his career finishing, and his health and family have got to come first in these situations, haven't they, really? So, really sad news. I mean, the club have tweeted, they're hoping to get him back up at some point as well, to say thank you to the fans, and the fans can say thank you to him. And, was it 54 appearances, 4 goals? He wasn't here a long time, but, he made a really decent contribution in the time he was here, didn't he? So, we all wish Nick all the best. We tweeted from the Brunton Bugle account just wishing him all the best as well. So if you want to go on Twitter and pass on your best wishes, I'm sure they'll be really appreciated. Next up, Dan, someone slid into our DMs this week, didn't they?
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Sounds fruity, doesn't it, when you say that? Yeah. But what it is, it's a nice little one, this, actually. It's Toby Show Silver's dropped us a message, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I was obviously speaking to Toby prior to the sadly cancelled quiz we had for CUFC, and he mentioned that he was organising a bit of an event, and the time has come for that event this Sunday. Yes,
so basically, anyone who follows Toby on social media might know he's very big into his faith, isn't he? And he's really got involved in the church community in Carlisle by the looks of things. So what he sorted out, the Elam Community Church, which I understand, Danny, that's near the
that's the one. It's the one by the bus station beside Old Furnham's.
Yes,
a lot of people know it as a vaccination centre in recent years.
Yeah, so Yeah, occasionally I think he puts up videos, doesn't he, up of him at the church at the weekends on his Instagram feed. So basically, this Sunday evening, he's hosting a football quiz and sort of Q&A about his journey through football life and faith at the church building. It's at 6:30 p.m. and he would love anyone, basically, any Carlisle fans, anyone who wants to go down, pop along. There's going to be refreshment. You get to have a chat with Toby and all the people down there. Just a fun evening.
I think Chris Brunskill's on it as well.
Yes,
part of the club.
Yeah, he's the club physio, isn't he? So if you want to get yourself down, come down and have a good chat with Toby and find out a bit more about it. So we promised Toby we'd give it a good shout out, and we're hoping we'll get Toby on the pod maybe sometime this summer to talk about his career, because compared against a lot of footballers, he's had quite a fascinating career, hasn't he? The way he's come up, really, and he started out actually in the academy system, but he sort of came out of it and he's done a bit of education and things like that. And it'd be a really interesting chat after. So hoping to grab him at some point in the summer, just have a little chat about that as well. So there you go. So if you want to go on Twitter, I think it's on the CUFC Twitter feed as well, isn't it, Dan? I think you guys.
Yeah, we put a tweet out for it, and I think Toby's putting it on his own.
Yeah.
On bits and bobs.
Yeah. And one little bit of news to cover, Dan. You're going to do this one. Playoff dates, because there's been a little bit of a tweak to them, hasn't there?
Yeah. I know when the club supporters group minutes came out last week, potential playoff date. I mean, it's looking likely that we're going to be in the playoffs. You never know. Promotion is still possible.
Yeah, could still miss out altogether if you're not careful. But
we'll see. But basically the two first legs, because obviously it'll be 7v4 and 6v5 usually.
Yeah,
they were scheduled for, I think it was noon Sunday.
Yeah.
And late evening Sunday.
Yeah.
Now, there's a thing came out from the EFL with all the dates, and the League 2 one has moved from noon Sunday to Saturday 7:45. It's swapped with the Championship.
Yeah.
And we think, although not confirmed, this is because Eurovision is on that Saturday night, and the TV companies will be thinking, we don't want a big Championship game, which has potential for good viewing figures, to be affected by that. So sod League 2, they can go there instead.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I can speak for myself here. I'm involved in bits of Eurovision with work, basically, because I work down in Liverpool, and it's a massive thing here at the moment. It's literally all we're doing in work. And it's going to be huge. And League 2 is the victim, I think, in all this, isn't it, really? Sadly. I mean, I don't get the logic why they don't just make it a midday kickoff or something like that. Because there's not going to be any other Championship games on, is there? And that's the BT Live game usually at midday on those days. So I'm not sure why they didn't just move the Championship one to then, or the League 2 one to then. I'm guessing maybe they want as big a gap as possible from the Monday, but I mean, for the sake of a few hours, it's just...
They're already showing a League 1 at 3 o'clock and a Championship one at 5:30.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it's potentially to do with equipment in the right place, etc.
It's just, I don't get the logic of it.
Who knows, yeah.
It's just there you go. So basically, as you say there, Dan, one of the League 2 games is going to be on the Saturday night, Saturday the 13th at 7:45. The other one's at, is it 6 p.m. the next day, I think, on the Sunday?
Sunday, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, sorry. So you've moved back an hour as well there. So 7 o'clock on the Sunday, which, I mean, that's a terrible kick-off time as well in itself, isn't it?
And then the second legs are the Thursday the 18th and Friday the 19th, both at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, which then only gives us, 8 or 9 days until the final itself, doesn't it? So,
but playoff ticket sales are always a rush, aren't they?
Yeah, they always are. But with any luck, if we haven't gone up automatically, we'll be planning for Wembley. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Right, Dan, there's no loan watch because there was no midweek games. Let's get straight to the match review then. Carl United 2, Stockport County 2. Just a belting game of football, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, the first half was decent. I thought we were probably the better team, but they got the goal. Second half was just proper end-to-end atmosphere, And there's a really good match thread on the Stockport forum about the game, and they were saying very similar to what our fans were saying. It was just two proper clubs, proper fan bases going at it, and any neutral. I've got a mate who's a Leicester fan. He was watching it through iFollow, because he lives in Stockport, so he thought, I'll watch Stockport Carlisle. And he texted me saying, what a game that was, pal, you know.
Yeah, he was just cracking, and we'll talk about the Stockport fans later, actually, because I think they're some of the best we've seen this season, actually. Game itself, Dan. So there was a lot of talk about, because Simmo said we need to change things up to get goals and stuff like that. He stuck to 3-5-2 though, didn't he? Were you surprised about this?
Yes and no. Like we said on the last episode, there was reasons to stay with that. There was reasons not to. So it was a very not surprised, but not surprised. If you know what I mean?
Yeah. I get what you mean there, and I think Simmo sort of hinted at that in his post-match comments, didn't he, as well, which will...
In the end, it was more personnel as opposed to formation.
Yeah. So obviously there was 3 changes to the lineup. Ben Barkley coming out, enforced. The other 2 were tactical decisions. So McCalmont and Patrick dropped to the bench as well. And in came Corey Whelan at centre-back for Barkley. And then Gibson shifted into midfield, and Joel Senior came in at right wing back, and then up front, J.K. Gordon got his first start. I mean, that'd been nearly 2 months since his last start, was it? Something like that?
Yeah,
I'm not 100% saying. It was certainly a while since he last started a game, so he's been a bit out of the cold. There's been rumours about him going back.
He started at Gillingham, didn't he?
Oh yes, you're right. Sorry, apologies. Yeah. Yes, you're right there. I mean, it's only his second start then in a while, basically. Isn't it? That's what I'm saying. So
his previous start before that was Mansfield when we got hammered.
Was that the last start?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realise it was that long. Yeah, so effectively, he's only had 2 starts in the last 2 months. But, I mean, we'll talk about it later. I thought he had a great game, to be fair, actually, in this one. But yeah, so it was that change that basically gave us a little bit more of sort of Gibson playing as a number 10 rather than, I know McCalmont's sort of playing that role, but he's not... He still drops a bit deeper sometimes, doesn't he? And Gibson, I think, gives you a bit more of a front foot bit of play in terms of that position. And yeah, so it's game started out. It's interesting the way Simmo looked at this game, Dan. He said he was disappointed with the first half. I think he's a little bit harsh on that, don't you? Because when you look back at it, outside of the goal, which for them, which we'll touch on in a sec, Holy didn't have a huge amount to do, whereas their keeper had 2 really good saves to make, didn't he, in the first half?
Yeah, like I just sort of suggested, I thought we played well first half.
Yeah. It's weird because Stockport probably were the better side the first half, and yet, like I said, other than the goal, Holy's not really had a save to make. There was a couple of headers that went over the bar, but that's about it, really. And one shot, I think, that was dragged wide by Will Collier. But bar that, Holy's not had a massive amount to do. Whereas their keeper, I mean, before Hippolyte's goal, you've got Jack Armour deciding he's becoming prime Sean Brisley circa 2017 and hitting a dipping volley from 30 odd yards, wasn't it? That, I mean, if that had gone in, the roof would have gone off the place, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was the only slight problem with it was pretty much down the keeper's throat. So
exactly, yeah.
As acrobatic as it was a pretty routine save, But it would have been goal of the season straight away, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's like it just had that little. It's one of those ones where when he first hit it, he thought it was going over, but he dipped so much at the last second. I think that it's actually a more difficult save for the keeper than it looks, but it is straight arm. You're right. And I think either side of him, I think he might be scrambling to actually struggle to keep that out.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, isn't it? And then the next best chance is the one that fell to Dennis and then Gibson, wasn't it? I mean, I think Dennis does brilliantly actually to get a really good volley off on the edge of the box here from a loose ball that Hinchcliffe in Stockport got. It's quite impressive, actually. I think he looked quite a decent keeper. He makes a really good parry, as good a parry as he can because of the power of the shot, and it falls straight to Gibson. And he's got to do better with it, hasn't he, to be fair?
Yeah, I think he's maybe shit the balls here,
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of that. And I think it's kind of a bit of, if you look back at it and you sort of slow down a bit, the ball comes at him so quickly, the ball's actually almost past him when he hits it, isn't he? So he can't really get his foot around it, and he snatches it, and in an ideal world, he probably takes a touch and plays it to J.K. Gordon to put it in the empty net. But it happens so quickly. You've just got to try and get a shot away, and unfortunately, he hits it into the side netting. He, probably should do a bit better with that one. But beyond that, there was a couple of headers from corners as well that we had in there. Like I said, they had a few headers from corners, but the opening goal for them, Hippolyte, it's kind of a weird one when you look back at it, because a good friend of mine messaged and said, I thought he took a deflection, but I don't think it does it?
It just fizzes about.
It's a strange one. So
if that's a correct term.
Yeah, so ball comes out to the right, and there's maybe a question about whether it's a high foot from Noyle on Mellish. Probably just on the border of it, isn't it? I think he probably just about get away with that one. He gets there before Mellish gets to it. He nips in, plays a low ball in that Stretton miskicks, to the hilarity of the crowd. But as soon as there was the big way there, I thought, oh, this isn't going to end well now, is it? Because you could see they still had the ball. Camps just sort of plays it into the box, and Hippolyte just hooks it towards goal. It's weird. It's not like a clean shot, is it? He just scoops it. And I think that just catches Holy. I don't think Holy's to blame. I think it's just the way the shot goes. It's not. He doesn't catch it cleanly, does he?
No. A lot of the half chances in this game were half chances. There were yes, there were chances, but there weren't, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. But
that was just sort of reflective of the frantic pace the game seemed to be at in the second half.
Yeah. So yeah, Hippolyte hooked it into the back of the net, and Holy didn't have much of a chance. There's maybe a question of whether, I think it's Senior could get a little bit tighter on Hippolyte in the box, but one of the things, you go in half time, you feel a little bit deflated that we haven't at least got something out that half, even though Stockport have been very good. I mean, on the break, they looked very impressive, didn't they? I thought Stretton, again, my mate Ian messaged me afterwards, and he said, Stretton looks a better player than he was with us, actually, in a short space of time.
Yeah, he hasn't scored many for them.
No.
But his all-round game, I saw a couple of Stockport fans online say, while he maybe hasn't brought the goals, the connectivity sort of thing he's really helped them.
Yeah, I think they had last season. They had that Ben Whitfield, who's gone to Barrow, and Ollie Crankshaw, someone who we were linked with in the past, and they're more sort of wide plays in a 4-3-3, and they were never going to get games because they play with two up front these days, and they play the very similar formation to us basically. And I think the kind of feeling was that Stretton is a player who can play that wide role, but he can also play down the middle. But you sometimes find players who do that don't just tend to score that many goals, do they, really? And it's a little bit of a struggle for them. Into the second half, and Simmo makes the big tactical change, which we'll talk about after we've finished discussing the goals. Mellish puts it into midfield, and Mellish is the one who gets the goal, isn't he? It comes, actually, you've got to say, from great pressure from J.K. Gordon, where he looked like he lost the ball, didn't he? He looked like he was on his backside, and he manages to get up and basically forces Akil Wright to put it behind for a corner, essentially, from quite a distant out, actually. Moxon goes over, whips in his set pieces have been very hit and miss lately, haven't they, Dan? Some have been good, some have been pretty dreadful. I think Simmo's mentioned this, but this was just.
I think not just him. I think most of our set pieces have been.
Yeah, no, you're
under
right.
Par recently,
You're
but,
right. Armour's just
they seem to regain the mojo with them on Tuesday.
Yeah, and he whips in a great ball. Madden misses the initial header, and I think Will Culler does as well. I think he's probably a bit put off by the fact that Madden doesn't get the header. The keeper's just rooted to his line. He just doesn't come at all, does he? And in the end, Mellish bundles it over the line. I mean, there's no other way of putting this, with his appendage, doesn't he?
He pots it in, yeah.
Yeah. Is he the first Carl United player to score with his penis? That's the question.
Probably not, no.
I'm talking about on the pitch here, by the way.
We do know of a certain Cameroonian player who once got his out on the pitch to relieve himself, pretending to be injured.
Indeed, the legendary Jean-Claude Bugle.
There was no allegedly about it.
No, legendary. I said not
Yeah, I was going to say.
There's no allegedly. Everyone knows about it.
It happened. Yeah, everyone knows.
I mean, God, imagine if you'd done a slide tackle near where that happened during the game. You'd be fuming, wouldn't you? He bundled it over the line, put himself on the line literally, and it just gave everybody a real lift, didn't it? Really, and you just. Suddenly, the noise is really loud. The Stockport fans who'd been making a hell of a noise were near enough silent for a lot of the rest of the, half at that point, And it's interesting. I listened back to the guys who we spoke to last week, the Scarf Bagara War, and it's interesting the way you see games from different parts of the ground, because they felt our fans were quite quiet until we scored, and especially until the second goal when the noise really lifted, and they kind of felt, and it's kind of like. Well, the Warwick were making quite a bit of noise, but you probably don't hear it.
The Warwick noise goes straight down the pitch. If you're in the waterworks, you can hear the Warwick.
Could you hear it when you were in there that time for the game against what you call them, Tranmere?
No, because I ended up in my own seat.
Oh, did you go in your own seat in the end? Yeah. But no, you're right. You don't hear it as much. Whereas, like I said, I thought the Tranmere fans Stockport fans made a lot of noise for most of the game, but as soon as the goal went in, they were quiet for a good 15, 20 minutes after that. There wasn't really any noise coming from them. They picked up a little bit, but yeah.
When there was noise, they were loud.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then a decent number of songs as well, which is nice to see, because you sometimes get clubs that come and they just have one or two songs, don't they? But they had a good mix. Why are they singing about Wembley? I'm guessing that's a sort of like a past sort of chant rather than a going to Wembley this season chant, I'm guessing. It's more something historically they've sung. I don't know, but there you go. So that goal goes in. There's a few more chances after that. Patrick had one where he had to go from the edge of the box. He maybe should have dragged it a bit the other way and gone with his left. I don't know. Moxon had a chance where he cut inside and hit a low shot, and you feel like he's getting a bit of confidence back when you see him do that with the shot from the left-footed shot that was straight at Hinchcliffe.
Yeah.
And then there was a big chance for Stockport to retake the lead, wasn't there? And it came from our attack, actually. And again, this is one where Patrick, for me, makes a mistake. He should be laying it back to Armour to whip a cross in. And he tries to play a ball to the edge of the box to Guy, and he proper hits it into him. And Guy really struggles to get into control. Then Senior does as well, and Stockport get on the break through Olaofi. I keep getting this wrong, isn't it? And Madden gets it. I thought Madden was excellent, by the way. I think you can see how much of a good player he is these days, can't you? I mean, not many goal-scoring chances, but so intelligent with his use of the ball. He gets away and he slips in Olaofe, and he hits a shot across goal that wholly brilliantly tips around the post, doesn't he?
Yeah. It was the slightest touches as well.
Well, it's funny, when you see the camera angle on...
it doesn't look as though he's even touched it. That's how slight it was.
That's the thing, and it looks like the shot's going wide anyway, but it's not. I think if you see it from other angles, it's going in the back of the net. It definitely is. It's the height of the angle from where they film it in the East Stand. It makes it look deceptively as if the ball was going wide anyway, but it wasn't, and it's a great save. And because I think this is an important point to point out, because we're going to talk about Stockport's second goal shortly, and it does have sort of an impact on that. And then came what we thought was going to be the winning goal, didn't we? Good bit of play from Akil right for them at the back. What a beast he was, but quite clumsy on the ball, wasn't he? He gave it away a few times, and he gave it away for the second goal for us. So loose touch, Patrick gets it and he basically tackles it and doesn't win it. But then he gets a great blocking on right. The ball loops up to Moxon. He loops a great ball down the wing for Edmondson to run onto. Does really well, Edmondson does. Everything right. Holds it up, cuts inside, and he plays the ball to Moxon. But I've got to say, before we talk about Moxon putting it in the back of the net, brilliant decoy run from Mellish. If you watch this back, he drags Will Collar across, basically, as if he wants the ball so he can play a ball across 6-yard box. And that opens up a space for Moxon on the edge of the area. Ball's into him, and it's funny, you listen at it from a similar angle to us. I thought Moxon had mishit it at first. It was a very weird sort of hit from the angle I was at, but actually it's a perfect hit into the top corner, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a good finish, really good finish.
I mean, the noise when that in was incredible, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
There was a proper feeling of yes, and it's worth noting Moxon's first goal at Brunton Park. All his goals have been away from home till this point. So I didn't even realise that until like someone pointed out on the night. I was like, oh wow, yeah, you're right. Actually, he still hasn't scored at Brunton Park, and yeah, brilliant finish, and pandemonium when that went in. There was a bit of a delay for the kickoff, obviously, because they brought the subs on, and I think the subs coming on, because obviously one of the subs scores the equaliser. Do you think that's partly what's caused a bit of a problem, that we didn't really know where people were and we couldn't pick people up?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, when we went 2-1, I actually thought if we can keep at them, we'll get a third here and finish the game off. But unfortunately, they got away and got the equaliser. But
I mean, let's talk about the equaliser then, Dan, because it's frustratingly almost straight from kickoff, even though it's 3 minutes later because of that delay with the subs coming on. It was good persistence down the left from Stockport, I've got to say. I think actually Senior and Guy handled it quite well at first. And then Senior just doesn't quite... I don't think he's particularly bad defender, but he just doesn't...
I don't think... I saw them getting a bit of stick for this. I don't think they did massively anything wrong.
No.
What it was a bloody good cross.
100%. And actually... Maybe Senior can get a little bit tighter on Hussey, possibly.
That's literally picking hairs for me.
We are picking hairs, though, definitely.
Yeah, I thought that was an absolute top draw delivery, that one.
Absolutely. And I think like I said, I think both him and Guy did quite well initially in holding them up. And then the ball comes to Hussey, he sets himself, and he likes it. It's on a sixpence. He's a brilliant player at this level, Hussey, to be fair. We've seen that, at Port Vale and was he before that? Was it Cheltenham, I think? Possibly. I think he's going for his third promotion, isn't he, from this level? And he puts a perfect cross in. Now, here comes the question, Dan. Should Thomas Howley be coming in claiming that?
He's took a bit of stick for this one, hasn't he? And I've looked at it, and where it's about 6 or 7 yards out, there's an argument for him coming for it, and there's an argument for him not coming for it. And whichever you say will be right to some and wrong to others. So I don't think there's a right answer on it.
I think it's right on the border of territory where he can come and claim it. I think it's one of those ones, maybe earlier on in the game he's a bit more confident and he comes for it, but I think later on in the game you'll find that with lockkeepers, they may be like, well, this is risky. If I come and flap at this and then it goes in, I'm going to look like a tit. I'm going to back myself here. And then the question is, I don't think there's any question. I think both Moxon and Armour probably should do better, shouldn't they, in terms of dealing with Lemonhay Evans, who comes in. It's a great header, actually. You know what? I don't think the footage either, again, does justice to how good a header it was, actually. Because it kind of looks like you think, oh, it's gone through Hurley. For me, when it happened in real time, it looks so much more powerful than that. It looked like it went right for it. It comes off the bar. And yeah, maybe there is maybe Hurley could do a little bit better in terms of saving it. But for me, it's a good header. And like I said, because he's just come on, no one's really picking him up. I think that's part of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. I would put more blame on those in the middle than those out wide stopping the cross.
Yeah.
But it's a brilliant cross and it's an excellent header.
Yeah.
I don't think many defences would have stopped it.
Yeah. And you know what I'm going to say about this, right? I'm glad it happened when it did. Because if that had been like the last kick of the game, I think that would have really, really deflated us. Massively deflated us. We would have gone like, we've blown a really big chance here. But actually, because it came straight from the kickoff and there was still, 8 minutes left with all the added on time. Well, in fact, 9 minutes left with all the added on time. It was kind of like we still had a chance to potentially get back into it. I think last kick would have really deflated us, whereas actually, because it happened then, there was still a bit of time to play. And actually, you can look back and say, you know what? This has been a cracking game of football. Fair play.
We actually had a little spell in injury time when we had corners where we could have nabbed it.
Yeah, we were peppering them a bit, weren't they? There was a brilliant ball in from Armour from that free kick on the right, actually. Which, we don't do that often. I think like Armour doesn't... He's taking corners, but he's not been taking free kicks, really, has he?
No.
So kind of like, it's nice to see him doing a little bit of that. So, yeah, it's... I didn't feel deflated at the final whistle. How did you feel?
A bit of a mixture. Slightly disappointed we never got 3 points, but also quite proud of the way they battled that second half, because the way we played, we were like, where I was sat, we were like, this is the Carlisle we know we can be.
Yeah.
Where's this Carlisle been the last month?
Yeah.
If we'd been this Carlisle for the last month, we'd probably be promoted by now.
Yeah, 100%.
But,
yeah,
you know, it's yes, automatic is highly unlikely, but there's still a very, very small outside chance.
Well,
and if that is going to be the half that sees us upturning form and fortune, bring on the playoffs, because nobody scares me in those.
No, I think, to be honest, I could see us end up playing Stockport again, and my God, what a couple of games. Because we won't play as badly as we did on Edgeley Park this time, I think, you know, if we end up playing each other in the playoffs, it's going to be, genuinely, it's going to be must-watch, isn't it, for a lower league fan, because I think it genuinely could be really exciting. Yeah, interesting, you mentioned about the fact, you know, top three still possible and stuff. We saw that tweet, didn't we, for that Bradford fan who put up. There was a set of circumstances, and it's not the most ridiculous set of circumstances either, is it, when you look at it? Where actually all the teams from second down to seventh could end up with the same number of points, couldn't they?
Yeah, they could all end up on 81 points. It's absolutely incredible. It really is.
And you know what the most incredible thing about that is, Dan? We'd almost certainly finish third if that happened, because our goal difference is so much better than the other ones, and we'd win all 3 games, so
we'd win games, so we'd obviously improve it as well.
It'd be, at the very least, be 3 better. So I think all the others would have to win each of their games like 5-0 or something like that, wouldn't they, to catch up with us? Because I think they're on like 17, 18, something like that. We're on 27 or something like that. So basically, if that happened, we'd go up in third, and Stockport would go up in second. So it's not. It needs a set of results this weekend to go for us, doesn't it? Really, but. My God, it's going to be an exciting. I genuinely think we'll still have a chance, and I think most teams will still have a chance of top 3 come the final day at Sutton, because it is so tight. And as I've said for a long while, this season will go to the wire. Yeah,
and it's Carlisle United, and we don't do things
easy.
Simply, we never have done. We never will do.
Yeah.
And there's just something in the back of my mind. Jimmy Glass Day, you know, it's being moved to that day from the Saturday, and
a 6'9" goalkeeper going up.
It would
for a corner.
Would be peak Carlisle United to go up very late on that day.
I mean, funny,
Don't get me wrong. I think Northampton and Stevenage will have enough to seal it before the last game.
Yeah.
But you know, if they do dip, you never know.
It's one of those ones that I look at it, it's funny because, like, yeah, the idea of a 6'9" goalkeeper going up for a corner at the end, I mean, no one's going to want to mark him, are they? Because it's just going to be impossible. Just whip a high ball and get his head on it, and you never know. Hey, we're dreaming now, aren't we? We're dreaming. Right, let's talk about some of the talking points for this game, Dan, before we do a League 2 roundup. I mean, we sort of touched on it already, but what a brilliant advert for League 2 football that was. I think both managers said it afterwards, and I think Neil Mellor was doing the Sky Sports News, wasn't he? The updates from the game, and I think he said as well, what an absolutely cracking game of football. He absolutely loved it. Just so many exciting moments, wasn't it? And you'd almost feel bad if either team. I mean, we'd be delighted if Carlisle won it, but you kind of feel bad if either team had won it, because neither team really deserved to lose in the way they played. Let's talk about tactical tweak at half-time, Dan. We sort of touched on it briefly before. You know, he stuck to his 3-5-2 at the start because he said it worked so well all season. And I get that, because this late in the season, if you're going to start changing your back four and stuff like that, especially when you're doing so well defensively, you're taking a huge risk, aren't you, in those circumstances?
Yeah.
To go 3-5-2, I can get it. He felt it didn't work in the first half, really. I think he's a little bit harsh. I think we were doing okay. Not perfect, but I think I can get why he maybe wanted to win a bit more of the ball and get a bit more on the front foot. The switch of Mellish into midfield at the start of the second half made all the difference. And the question is, do we start that way on the start? That's what we'll probably talk about in the match preview, won't we? I think it's fair to say. That's going to be a big chunk of it.
He just caused chaos on that second half, didn't he?
Big John rides again.
One minute he was like a deep number 4. The next thing he was the highest number 10. You know, it's and everywhere in a massive diamond in between. You know,
I can't believe the engine on him. Like, he must be the fittest player at the club. He's got to be.
Oh yeah,
because he just never looks tired.
Well, there was a training session after a game had been off because of the frost when Simmo wanted to like hit them hard because they hadn't played for a few days, and I think he said it was Jon Mellish and Christian Dennis didn't have to do the extra because they just run for fun.
Yeah,
they just run and run and run and run.
Yeah, like you say, Dan, he had a. I think he had a decent enough first half. Actually, dealt quite well with the attacking threat and kept up with Stretton and stuff. But in the second half, like the amount of ground he covered, I just can never get over it. Like you said, there was one great moment, wasn't there, where he did well to win the ball and he just shoved the player out the way, gave away. It was a bit of a silly free kick, really, but sometimes, you don't mind and give away some of those free kicks. It takes the sting out of the game a little bit for them.
It shows no pushover, etc.
Exactly,
as well.
Yeah, he's not one to ever get bullied, is he? So he was perfectly fine. And I mean, we're probably in the next couple of weeks going to start talking about players of the season for us and stuff. Well, I think we're going to do, aren't we? We're going to do our own player of the season as presenters. Decide who we want for that. Our own awards there. But then we're also going to offer up a listener player of the season award, aren't we? We're going to set up a poll for that, I think, somewhere. We're going to work out what we're doing. We're not 100% certain yet. But, I mean, he's going to be a contender, isn't he?
He's up there. I think it'll be one of the most open for a while.
Definitely. There's no, last year, Mark Howard was just the obvious choice for pretty much everything, wasn't he? But for this year, there's 4 or 5 who really could strongly be up there. But there you go. Great performance from Jon. J.K. Gordon, back to his best, wasn't he, in this one as well? I think he had a great game. I mean, just in terms... physically, for someone who looks like he's going to be more of a winger, more of a tricky player, he's so good. He's so strong with the ball. He wins a lot of his headers. He holds it up well. He's got the ability to get around a man as well from a difficult situation. That's what we want to see a bit more. I mean, he's had his lull. His confidence probably was dented a bit by being out of the team, but he looks like he's back with a bit of belief, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I really like it. Would you stick with him in there for the next few games? I know we're going to touch it on the preview, but I feel like he's giving himself a chance to be starting games. It's interesting. It seems to sort of rotate a bit, doesn't it, in terms of the player who's not really in contention? Garner's the one at the moment for us, isn't he?
Yeah.
We have an odd one.
See, the big question, which obviously we'll talk in the preview, is do you stick with the tried and tested, or do we go to what we played second half?
It's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one, and I've got my views in it. I'm sure you've got your views in it, so we'll talk about that later. Just to sort of wrap this bit up, Dan, though, I've just got to give a shout out to, as I mentioned before, the Stockport fans, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of how they back their side. Best away fans this season, I think.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who else has brought good numbers. Bradford,
but they just whinge all the time on their team, don't they? They're just unsatisfied set of fans in this division, which I kind of get, But yeah, brilliant support, especially for a Tuesday night as well, to bring that many up. Pretty much the same number we took down there, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
they had some...
I think we took just a little bit more. But...
Yeah. But it's kind of... it's interesting that they had a little bit more to sing about than we did down there, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it's interesting reading their forums. You mentioned this on the Stockport County Forum. A lot of compliments for Brunton Park. There was a brilliant post, wasn't there? A guy saying, how much he loved coming there. I think it might have been his first ever visit, but talk about all the quirky features of the ground and how, it felt like a proper Football League thing. And a lot of them were saying, weren't they? Because, they've had their wilderness years. I mean, 6 years in the National League North. I can't even comprehend following Carl United at some of the places they were following Stockport. And they were all saying, how enjoyable is it to be back playing a proper Football League game at a proper ground against a proper team? And that gives you a nice warm, fuzzy feeling inside, doesn't it? About, actually, you know what? That was a really good game of football.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it was just, like I said, my mate who watched it, any interested outsider observer, they'll have thought, bloody hell, these are two good teams.
There was a great tweet as well we found, wasn't it? There's a guy on Twitter, he's a Dutch football journalist, isn't he? Who basically, he's doing the 116, he's got it down as, isn't it? I think that's his Twitter handle. I'm not 100%, I'm just going to check while we're talking. So he tweets in Dutch, obviously. And he did some really interesting tweets, didn't he, about going to the game.
This lad was on the train back from Barrow last year. He got a ticket for Barrow Carlisle. I think he went in the home end because that was where he could only get a ticket. But he was on the train, and he seemed quite a good. And I have a couple of friends in Holland who know of him. Yeah,
I'm trying to find the one of the tweets he did while we're talking, because it's very funny. Right? One of them, when it translates to English, so basically he must have parked up near the Magpie, mustn't he? Because he passed by the Chung's Takeaway, didn't he? The chippy. But when you translate it from Dutch to English on Twitter, it says, on the way to the stadium we came across this cosy chippy / Chinese, but we ignored them anyway. Which obviously is not probably as rude as that in when you have it in Dutch. But there was what was the other tweet as well? There was a later tweet where this was the next one, wasn't it? It is a lot better here than in the winter, when it is always the great suffering here in the cold.
Yeah, I love some of the translates on Twitter.
So yeah,
they take them so out of context without meaning to.
Yeah, so if you want to go and find his tweet, it's at doing the 116 basically. So he seems to do a lot of English. I mean, he must be based in England, I'm guessing, because he tends to do a lot, doesn't he?
He isn't. No,
is he not? Wow, so he comes over.
He's not. He's based in Holland.
Oh wow, so fair play.
Because he follows PSV Eindhoven as well.
Ah, right. Well, there's a connection there, isn't it, with Big Jarrett? So there you go. Right, Dan, just before we wrap up the end of the first half, shall we do a quick League Two roundup? Got to start off with congratulations, don't we, to Leyton Orient, securing their promotion to League One despite losing 2-0 at Gillingham. What ridiculous circumstances these were, though, weren't they?
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen it, basically, they were losing 2-0. And the floodlights went out.
Yeah.
While the floodlights went out...
And they were down to 10 men, should say, as well, yeah.
Yeah. Swindon took the lead over Bradford quite late in their game, which meant that, obviously, Orient couldn't be caught for promotion.
Because we were drawing as well.
So, yeah, the lights went out for about 15, 20 minutes. All the other games finished, and there was maybe 10 minutes left in their game. Orient had the ridiculous situation where they were 2-0 down with 10 men, and didn't care because they're promoted and they just wanted to celebrate with the fans and have a beer.
Yeah. So it's funny, there's an even better clip I found on Twitter. But basically, just before they're about to kick off, when they're coming back up to do a little warm-up before they kick off the game again to finish off the match, the message comes through that basically the Bradford game's finished, because there was a lot, I think there was 7 minutes at a time in the Bradford game. So the message comes through that game's over and our game's over. And the Orient players are on the pitch waiting to kick off the game again. And suddenly they're in a big huddle, jumping up and down, celebrating. So it's kind of like, and the Gillingham players are sort of like, what the hell are we going to do for the rest of this game? And the game kicks off, and like you said, it's just a farce. Basically, the Gillingham players are just playing the ball amongst themselves along the back line. One of the Gillingham players does a little dance with no player about within 20 yards of him on the ball. I looked up the stats of this, because if you go on whoscored.com, you can use this little slider to look at possession stats and other stats over a basic time period, and I looked for the last 10 minutes plus the added on time. What do you reckon Gillingham's pass completion stats were for the last 12, 15 minutes, Dan?
Oh, it's something ridiculously high, because Orient didn't even bother trying to get it.
Pass completion 98%, possession 92%. Yeah. It's a joke. Like, Gillingham didn't even bother attacking there. It's like, you know what, we've got a 2-0 win. We're happy with it. There's some people saying it's a bit dodgy. I don't think it's dodgy. It's just the circumstances, and it's just common sense, really, by that point. You know, they've been out. You don't want to risk injuries either, really, do you? Because you've stopped playing for about 20, 25 minutes. You're better off just playing the game out in those circumstances. So there you go. So well done to Orient. I mean, we kind of know they've been going up for quite a while, haven't we? And hopefully they'll secure themselves as champions, because I think if any other team was to win the title now,
they're going to, aren't
they?
Yeah,
ridiculous. They have been consistently the best side also.
Plus, they actually hold the key.
They do.
As I said to you on WhatsApp, because I'm just getting their fixtures.
Well, they play Crewe this weekend, don't they, at home? So I think they'll want to secure the title there, you'd think. But then they play...
the following three, they play Mansfield away, Stockport at home, and Bradford away.
Yeah. So there's plenty to play for there, isn't there, really? Yes, so the Mansfield one.
The Mansfield one being their game in hand.
Yeah, we really want them to win that one, because that would take a bit of pressure off us.
So the problem is, if Orient win the league on Saturday, they're obviously going to have a bit of a drink up and a celebration.
Yeah, that's what worries me a little bit, but we hope not. I'm
not suggesting anything untoward, but
it's inevitable.
They'll be slightly fragile, shall we say.
Yes, let's just say that. Both Northampton and Stevenage, they kept a tight grip on the other promotion places. They got a 2-1 winner at Sutton and a 1-0 home winner with Doncaster Rovers, respectively. You should know about Stevenage. I didn't realise this until someone pointed out to me. They've only won 5 out of their 20 away games this season. And 2 of the remaining away games are away. So, there's still potential for them to be caught. I feel to me like Northampton are the more secure of the two than Stevenage. I think Stevenage, even though Stevenage fixtures look easy on paper, they don't have a great away record, and I do wonder if they'll start to panic a little bit about that, possibly. But we'll have to wait and see. Bradford City, they slipped up. They went down to a 1-0 defeat at Swindon, which is the Robins' first home win since the 11th of February. So that is a bit of a dodgy result for Bradford in that sense. Salford and Mansfield, they closed the gap on United. They picked up a 2-0 win over Hartlepool and a 2-1 victory at Newport, respectively. Interestingly, Salford actually moved ahead. Even that Mansfield started the day ahead of Salford, but there was only one difference in the goal difference, wasn't there? I think they were equal on goal difference, but goals scored, I think Mansfield were ahead. But then Salford got an extra goal in the goal difference. So it's so tight, isn't it, really, in that battle there? Down at the bottom, Rochdale avoided confirming relegation thanks to a 94th minute equaliser against Tranmere Rovers. It's just a matter of time. They play Stockport away this weekend, so you kind of feel like the writing's on the wall there, isn't it? But you never know. Hopefully they'll battle and give us a bit of hope as well. Did you see the opening goal in that one though, Dan? Tranmere's first goal.
Yeah.
But pass back to the keeper, and I don't know why he's trying to control it with his left foot there. It's really, really strange. I know he's left-footed, I'm guessing, but control it with your right and move it away from goal, surely.
I'm just looking at the goal difference on the BBC table, and I'll go from top to bottom, from second to 8th. Stockport are 24, we're 23. Stevenage are 19, Northampton 18, Bradford 18, Salford 17 and Mansfield 16. Yeah. And obviously Mansfield and Bradford and Stevenage all have an extra game.
Yeah.
It's so tight, isn't it?
You know what? Getting that goal difference up for us is a real bonus. It really is. It's something we should really be pleased about, really, shouldn't we? Only have a little bit of news. Walsall looking for a new manager, aren't they? 3-0 defeat at Harrogate cost Mike Flynn his job as Saddler's boss. It kind of felt like the writing was on the wall for that for a while, doesn't it? Because they've just, since they lost Danny Johnson in January, they've just collapsed. Jamil Matt and Matt Stevens have just not worked as signings for them, have they? Everyone thought, wow, they've signed the two of the top scorers in League Two last season, but nope, they've really not hit the ground running at all there. So, yeah, you do wonder with Mike Flynn if he's going to end up being one of those managers that just works at one club, don't you?
Yeah.
Just happens sometimes, but there you go. Right, we're going to take a short break and then we'll be back with the second half of the show.
Hi, I'm Owen Moxon and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Owen Moxon back to a bit of his best, wasn't he, for the Stockport game, Dan? Especially second half.
Just a little update, because we're recording this a bit later than normal on Friday dinner time. Radio Cumbria just tweeted in the last few minutes. Manager Paul Simpson says that there are no immediate plans to open contract talks with Owen Moxon, but it will happen. And the quote is, he epitomises the turnaround of his football club. I remember he had to take a day off from driving his van to meet me last summer. He's had an incredible season.
That's good news, isn't it? Whether he'll sign, I kind of hope he'll sign an extended deal with the knowledge of, like, there's a release clause in there if we get a 7-figure fee or something like that.
I think there'll be a mutual thing that, look, if we get an offer that's good for the club, we're happy for you to move, sort of thing, you know.
And I think if he can get us up and then has a good half season in League One, he'll get a really big move. And I think that's better than possibly maybe only getting a top end League One, lower end Championship club. He could get a really big club coming in from. So
you could get a Middlesbrough or a Sunderland or a
absolutely.
You know.
Before we go on any further, Dan, this is something we had an email the other day from someone asking to send a birthday message to their dad on the show, and it's someone we've worked with in the past on this show, and we thought it's only fair to help the lad out. So he came and found me in the paddock at the last home game, and it's young Craig Robson, obviously, isn't it? Who is one of our regular and one of our best, I think it's fair to say, 6-second reviewers. So here's the little message that Craig had for his dad.
Happy birthday, Dad. Thanks for putting me through the hell of supporting Carlisle and up the Blues.
Good lad. Happy birthday, Martin.
I'm already awaiting the abusive WhatsApp off Martin.
Brilliant.
Why did you let him do that?
And if he wants to blame anyone, blame my brother Blaine, because he's the one who suggested the line about putting the hell through the hell. But
not that it was a big birthday and anything. 50.
Oh, there you go, Martin. Happy 50th birthday to you. I'm not going to say we're going to make a habit of putting our birthday message on here, but young Craig's done us a favour quite a few times this season, so we'll make an exception, won't we, for him, won't we? Right, before we do Behind Enemy Lines, Dan, you've got a question for me, haven't you?
Yeah, just a quick one I sort of made up this morning. Discounting discredited cup games, we have played Barrow 5 times since their return to the EFL. Yeah. In their team sheets for those 5 games have been 8 players who have been on the books of Carlisle United. Who are those 8 players?
Ooh, right, okay, let's get going. Paul Farman, first up.
Yeah.
Connor Brown.
Yeah.
Pat Brough.
Yeah.
Are we counting Tom White?
We are.
Good, right.
Because he was at Carlisle United. So.
He was. That's 4 in. Would Jamie Devitt have been one of them?
No, he didn't feature on the team sheet.
Oh, well, I thought he had done for at least one of them. Okay, so no Jamie Devitt. That's 1 wrong. Zanzala, obviously.
Correct.
Who else? Richie Bennett.
Correct.
How many have I got now? Is that 6?
6 outright. Doing well.
Are the other 2 tough to get, or should I be really getting them?
They're pretty obvious.
Mark
when you read
Ellis.
the names. Correct.
And
go on for the set.
For the set, I'm racking my brains now. Is it going to be a midfielder or a striker or a defender? I can't think anyone else who left us to go to them, or if it's the way around. Oh my God, you've come. I don't want to leave too much dead air here, but I'm trying to rack my brains and think of the games you've played against them and who's played. Anyone who's left them fairly. Is someone who's still there? Oh God, I don't know. Go on. Who's
Mike Jones.
Oh, for God's sake!
Sometimes the obvious ones are the hardest.
Yeah. That's very annoying, isn't it? Because he left. Because you kind of forget that Farman and Zanzala turned down deals to go there, whereas Jones was sort of let go, wasn't he, basically? So it's a bit different. That's what caught me out. Oh, well, there you go. So anyone listening along, have a good go at that. That's a nice little question for you. Right. It's time for Behind Enemy Lines, where we talk to an opposition podcast about the game. And it's a little bit different this week because we're speaking to Freya, the Barrow fan, who is one of the panelists, would you call it that? Hosts? I don't know how you describe it. On the Out of the Blue, which is the BBC Radio Cumbria, Carlisle United and Barrow podcast. So she gives a little plug to it. We let her
co-host. I would say co-host because
co-host,
herself and
Matt Honeyman,
does the Carlisle bit. They're on every week.
Yes, so I think that's.
It's a good listen, by the way. Anyone who hasn't stumbled across it yet?
Yes.
Friends of the Brunton Bugle.
Very well educated presenters on there, aren't they, Dan? I think it's fair to say.
Incredibly, yeah.
Possibly to university standard. We're not 100% certain on that. We'll have to find out. Yes, so we had a chat with Freya, the Barrow fan. I had a really good chat, actually. I'd say, she's not. Because she's a bit more of a Barrow fan's been following for quite a few years. She's not as much of the I hate Carl United sort of thing, really. So she's very much she hates Morecambe. You'll find that on the
a lot of Barrow fans do because there's an entire generation don't consider us.
It's very much the younger fans, isn't it, that see that. I think it's the same with us, really. We're not quite as fussed, are we, really, on Barrow in that sense? So what did we chat about? We had a chat about the joys of not being in a relegation battle this season. What it's like, I thought this was really interesting, what it's like going from supporting a non-league club and being like a dedicated non-league follower to then your club being in the EFL, and what kind of a change that is like. And a bit of thoughts about, as you mentioned there, the growing rivalry between the two clubs. So here's the chat I had with Freya. So yes, here we are with the latest Behind Enemy Lines section on the Brunton Bugle podcast. And this week we're talking to Freya, who is a Barrow fan who, if you happen to listen to the BBC Radio Cumbria Out of the Blue podcast, you might recognise her voice because she is, of course, the Barrow fan that appears on there with, is it Matt that's the Carlisle fan on there?
Yeah, Matt Honeyman, yeah.
Matt Honeyman, yes. So yeah, I've listened a few times. It's one of these weird ones because I listen to so many podcasts. Sometimes I have to sort of say, all right, I haven't got time to listen to all of these, so I sort of dip in and out of the blue ones. So,
yeah,
but it's good. It's something different for Carlisle fans. We'll give you a chance to plug it later on. But let's get straight into it, talking about Barrow. Then we'll start first, sort of talking about generally about supporting Barrow for you, because if you don't mind me asking, how long have you been supporting Barrow or going to watch them? It just helps with the question we're about to ask.
Too long.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to work it out now, but my maths is awful. I think it's about 16, 17 years now.
Perfect, right? That works really well for this question I'm asking you then. Because I was looking back now, if you go back 8 seasons ago, you guys were playing in the National League North, or the Conference North as it was still called then.
Yeah.
And you were playing the likes of Guiseley, North Ferriby United, Lowestoft Town, Colburn Bay, Worcester. I mean, looking at this list, some of these clubs, how they're classed as Northern, I'll never know. But
Hednesford Town, there's another one.
Yes, Hednesford, another one, a perfect one. Like, when you go back and think to when you were watching the Bluebirds then, did you ever imagine that they'd be back in the EFL playing against your Bradford Cities and I was going to say Stockport. Stockport were playing at that level back then as well, so it's a weird one.
Yeah, I maybe don't think about Stockport too much because the amount of times we actually played them down at the Conference North as well. But no, to be honest, I always hoped it's one of them things like when you. Obviously, I went around when we were back in the Football League all them years ago, like the older generation were. But it's one of the things that you kind of, when you've spent your whole life supporting a non-league team, you kind of you're more hopeful for it rather than like expecting it or think it's ever going to happen. So when we struck really, I wouldn't say lucky because obviously we deserved to go up when we did. Yeah. We had a really good season. Obviously, actually there was a bit of luck with COVID and stuff, but I do think. We would have ended up winning the league anyway, but when I say we struck it lucky with sort of the season we got, I don't think we would have sort of got promoted around like if we had before Wrexham and Stockport got bankrolled as they have. But never would have expected it, and to be able to say there was a lot of questions asked about us when we first got promoted because obviously we got promoted during COVID season and saying, they didn't deserve it. They've been, got up by proxy or whatever. I think to show like now we've stayed up for 2 seasons and now we're challenging at the other end of the table. Now in our 3rd season, so we definitely deserve to be here now. So yeah, we're all loving it.
I mean, as a supporter, what was it like from following your team at these? National League North grounds to then go into some of these. I mean, some of these grounds have been in the Premier League, your Swindons and your Bradford and stuff like that. Yeah. What's it like? Is it because I mean, as a Carlisle fan, the nearest thing we can sort of get is from when we finally got ourselves back into League One a few years back, and we were starting to go to the likes of Forest and Leeds. That was a different, but we were still getting some bigger crowds in what was League Two then as well. So for you guys, it must have been. I mean, it's not pinching yourselves maybe a little bit, taking a bit far, but it must have been a great feeling to go to these grounds again.
Yeah, these Football League away days are like different gravy to you. Like you said earlier, like you guys, we went to Bradford away the other week, and I was in Bradford. And I seen a sign for Guiseley, and we all just said like that was us a few years ago going over there. Now look like where we're going and stuff. Because like you say, you go to Bradford and like Valley Parade's enormous, isn't it? Like it's just ridiculous for a League Two club. It's ridiculous. That ground and you you do sort of, it is like a pinch yourself moment, because you just think, like, look where we were, like the clubs you named earlier, some of the grounds, like North Ferriby don't even exist anymore. It was literally a village. I went there a couple of times, and like, it is literally the smallest village you'll ever see in your life. And that was days out to places like that, and now you're getting like proper football league experience. So it's definitely changed the dynamics of supporting the club, but for all the right reasons. No one wants to be sort of sitting around in non-league. It gets a bit boring, you know what I mean? So you want to be experiencing those sorts of things.
Yeah. So let's talk about the football then. This season, maybe I'm a bit harsh, but it probably looks like your playoff chances are looking fairly slim now, I think, thanks to last night's results. I mean, in the similar way that our top three chances are looking pretty much non-existent now. Despite that, and obviously you had that brief period where you were even in the top three early in the season, you must be pretty happy with how the season's gone, considering the previous two seasons where you were sort of struggling to establish yourselves as a club at Football League level again.
Yeah, it took us a little while to kind of get ourselves sort of settled in this league. We had a lot, constantly changing managers, especially that first season. The squad, we didn't invest well in the squad. We didn't sign players that were good enough to be in the Football League. How we stayed up, we stayed up on pure look at there was teams worse than us. But that didn't mean for 1 second that the squad that we had was actually good enough to be in that league. So it definitely took us a little bit to kind of get sort of cemented in the league. But it's such a nice change now to have like this point of the season where I don't think you're being harsh in saying that our chances are pretty much gone. Like, it takes an absolute miracle to make the playoffs now, and that's fine. Like I kept saying on the Out of the Blue podcast that your top 10 finish is great. Like compared to like where we've been this time last season. Like, I think this time last season we'd actually already beat Forest Green 4-0, and I think that's would have been like our result this time last season. And there was a massive step towards safety that result. So yeah, like this time the last two seasons we've been constantly looking at over our shoulder, watching what the teams around the bottom are doing. But now, I couldn't care less what the teams down the bottom are doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're looking at what Mansfield and Salford have been doing over the last few weeks. And unfortunately, we just haven't been able to sort of capitalise on when, the few times they've missed or they've dropped points, we haven't been able to capitalise, unfortunately. But overall, it's nice to have that little flirt with the playoffs and then look towards, challenging even higher next season. But it has been a great season to, just enjoy the football and enjoy being in League Two without the stress of thinking, where we're going to be next season.
You mentioned there, you've actually sort of touched on my next question. I was going to say that you've chopped and changed managers since you come into the league, and it's trying to find someone who's the right man for the job, isn't it? You tried the experience route and things like that. You've settled. Well, I say settled. You brought in Pete Wild last summer after the great job he did at Halifax. How impressed have you been with him? Because he seems to have done a great job in terms of knitting a very small, tight squad together. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh with the criticism. He does seem to get very emotional after games, and I look back and I think when Paul Simpson was standing out with us, he could get quite emotional after games. He could get quite hepped up in his interviews. I think that's something that comes with experience. But you must be really happy with the job he's done.
Yeah, definitely. No one can grumble at where we finished this season. Like some of the individual results we've had this season, like beating Bradford away from home, and to, big results like that. Doing the double over Stockport. Well, I did the double over Bradford and Stockport this season, which in all four of those games it was great. So yeah, overall, like, he's given us a top 10 finish. Individual days like that, and not too bad cup run. In the League Cup, we went to Blackpool and knocked them out of the cup, which was a really good night. Like I said earlier, the days that we're having at the minute, like, there's just different gravy to the past few years. And like I say, I'm really impressed with Wild. I think, there's always the worry that they're not ready to step up. Obviously, he did really, really well with Halifax last season down in non-league, and I would always rather go for an up-and-coming manager rather than someone like in discussions. We had Phil Brown at the end of last season. We were in discussions to give him, the the permanent job. I would always rather have someone like Wild on his way up than Brown on his way down. So, but there's always that risk that they're just not quite ready for that step up yet. But Wild looks like he's more than ready for it. Well, he obviously was more than ready for it, and like I say, he probably is catching some attention from other teams. I'm not saying other teams higher up in the leagues will be looking at him right now, but it's a bit like when we got Ian Everett in, where we unfortunately we couldn't keep hold of him at the time. He went higher up, and I think teams are always looking at managers like that. So obviously good if he carries on the way he is with us, but there's always a risk that he might get picked up by someone else, maybe League One, League Two, but Championship. But who knows? But we're just enjoying having him at the time at the minute, and hopefully it continues as it's been going.
I want to talk about the two ex-Blues in your squad. I mean, first up, we'll go with Paul Farman. Recently got a new contract, you guys, and obviously we know what he's like. He was pretty good for us in the season, the one season we had him. What I say to you guys is, listening to Radio Cumbria and watching the Football League highlights, it seems one week he has an absolute blinder where he's keeping you in it, and then the next week he seems to have some sort of major cock-up and he seems to be involved in a goal. Are you happy with him staying? I mean, the one thing that's always got with me is his kicking is just ridiculous. How far he can kick a ball from everywhere. But are you happy with him?
I am, yeah. I know, like I agree with what you say. Like it was kind of at the start of the season where we had a few rough patches. I mean, when we played away at Stevenage, we went 2-0 down quite quickly because of two absolute howlers from him. And I'd literally just been defending him on the podcast that week, and then we went down to Stevenage and he did that. But I'm happy with him. I think second half of the season he's definitely been a lot more consistent. I think goalkeepers in this game can be a bit of a scapegoat sometimes, where mistakes by a keeper always look worse, I think, because the last line of defence, aren't they? If a keeper makes a mistake, they're more than likely going to end up conceding a goal. But you get someone in midfield who makes a mistake, you got the defence to try and make up for that, or the rest of the midfield and whatnot. So there's always, every other position, there's always someone behind you to try, or beside you to try and help with that mistake. Keepers are a bit lonely in that sense. So I do think like the keepers, mistakes are sort of amplified a bit. But I just think with Farman, I just think he's a solid League Two goalkeeper. If they didn't make mistakes, they wouldn't be down in League Two. They'd be playing higher up in the pyramid. That's the thing. Like, I don't see how we're going to get any better than him, really. Like, I mean, obviously there is going to be better goalkeepers out there, but the other teams who are better than us are going to be looking at those sort of things. So I'm happy with him. I'm happy he's signed a new deal. I can't complain about him, to be honest.
Yeah, Pat Bruff then. Someone who I think was quite unlucky at Carlisle. He came through in the youth academy. He was a left winger, really, when he came through us, and he mostly got played at left back. And the problem with that is, we had Danny Granger in our squad then, and Danny Granger, free scoring defender and captain of the club, he's always likely to not get as much game time. He's built himself back up. He came up with you guys. Is he someone obviously you'd love to keep long term? When I think is he under contract till the end of next season? Possibly. I think he seems to be someone who attracts quite a bit of attention for you guys as well. There seems to be a few clubs sniffing around him occasionally.
I think he's out of contract this summer.
Is he?
Yeah. So. And it worries me that he's not signed the contract yet. There's a lot. Obviously, you hear a lot of rumours that other teams are interested in him. He's very consistent. He's probably not at his. It's strange because as far as we're having our best season for years and our highest place finish. I think for a very, very long time. But he's probably not by his standards being his best season for us, if I'm honest. I think he's probably had a lot more sort of involvement in goals over other like past seasons, especially the season we went up. But yeah, if anything, he's just very, very solid. He's a solid like 7 out of 10 every single game. And yeah, I think players like that are high in demand. I think I can see him moving higher up the divisions. There's been talk of Wrexham possibly wanting him. I mean, Wrexham want to get a player, don't they? You know what I mean? Like,
we know that.
Yeah. So do we. So it is just one of them things. Unfortunately, if they come calling, money talks in this game, doesn't it? And players have short careers. He wants to test himself at the highest level. I mean, I hope he signs a new deal, but it's just one of the things where you think he probably would have signed it by now if he was going to. So we'll just have to see how sort of that pans out. But if he does move on to pastures new, then good luck to him, because he doesn't owe us anything more. He's we've had a really. He was one of them when he signed him. I think we signed him from Morecambe.
Yeah,
it's a bit like one of them, a weird signing, like very uninspiring, to be honest, when we first signed him. But you hope that he proved wrong by things like that, and we were. He's been, we've more than got our sort of worth out of him. So yeah, good luck to him if he moves on.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time, Freya, because I know I think you're on a break. So I'm going to ask you one question about the rivalry between Carlisle United and Barrow, because it's a strange one, isn't it? I'm a slightly older fan, so for me, when I started following Carlisle, the very start it was maybe Preston at a push Burnley that we felt we had a rivalry with. Then it sort of became Hartlepool and Darlington. And Darlington dropped off the thing. Hartlepool dropped off a bit. Then it became Morecambe. To have a county rival, I think, has got a lot of our younger fans excited. For me, it doesn't get me quite as excited as they do, but it does seem like the younger fans of both clubs do seem to see it as a rivalry. But I know a lot of older Barrow fans, they actually look to Morecambe, don't they, as their big rivals.
Yeah, and I'm in that Morecambe kind of group, really. I can see why. Like, I always I think about this, and I'm like, I try and see it from a Carlisle point of view, where because. And we are quite similar in a sense that obviously we've been in separate divisions for a long time, so it's we're both quite isolated in terms of football geography and stuff like that. So I think with both teams have been kind of starved of a proper derby or rivalry kind. I mean, we had to the point where Fylde was our derby game, if you could inverted commas there. So yeah, I think both teams have been a bit starved of a proper derby sort of game. So now we're both in the same league. Like you say, it's got a lot of the younger fans. I mean, mine's Morecambe. I can't stand Morecambe, and I kind of weren't that bothered about Carlisle really. But now I don't know. It's starting to get to I'm starting to get into it a bit more. I like to wind Matt up and stuff and probably make out I care a lot more than I actually do about Carlisle. But then he also likes to say that I'm a closet Carlisle fan, which I'm definitely not. But yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? But it's good to have. We all want closer games to us, because it's a trek for us all going from Cumbria in it anywhere. So it's nice to have a shorter game and that bit of rivalry. But yeah, see if we carry on with that next season, or whether we end up as a division apart again.
Well, either way, hopefully you'll have a game against Morecambe to look forward to next season.
Well, yeah, that's looking more likely. Mind you, they won at the weekend as well, so
yeah, they're giving it the best go, aren't they? There we go. Freya, thanks so much for giving up your time. So, firstly, before I get a prediction from you for the game, tell us a little bit about the podcast you do with Paul and Matt at BBC Radio Cumbria, Out of the Blue.
Yeah, so the Out of the Blue podcast is myself as the resident Barrow fan, Matt Honeyman is a resident Carlisle fan, and then produced by Paul Newton of Radio Cumbria. So we have new episodes out every Wednesday. We just generally talk the weekend's the weekend's results, the next weekend's fixtures, whatever's gone on in there. Sometimes football news, whatever's come up in that. Yeah, but that's basically it. It doesn't sound very interesting, but if you're a fan of Barrow and Carlisle, it's definitely worth a watch. We've had a lot of positive reviews about it. So yeah, next episode will be out tonight. So yeah, give it a listen if you're going to the game on Saturday. What better way to prepare yourself for a big derby game on Saturday than listen to us chat about it. So.
Exactly. Listen to the Bugle and listen to Out of the Blue. That's what I'm going to recommend to everyone this weekend. So, yeah, before you go, Freya, we always like to ask for a score prediction. Some people don't like giving it, but what are you going for this weekend?
I'm going to have to predict a Barrow win. So I'll go 1-0 Barrow with Josh Gordon scoring.
Well, there you go. I mean, I can guarantee you, because I'm recording this with Dan later in the week, Dan will predict an 8-0 win to Carlisle. He did it for
That's
earlier
right.
this.
Matt predicted 3-0 Carlisle as well. So
well, it's ridiculous. He predicted 8-0 for the one at home, and he's convinced it because it was 5. The thing is, he cheats because we have a prediction competition, and basically have to name different scores, and you get points for scores. And he named 8 different scores. I was like, you're taking the mick with that. 100%.
Name every single one. Yeah.
Exactly. Freya, thanks for your time. And you know what? I'm going to be generous. I do wish you all the best for the rest of the season after this weekend's game, because there's only 2 games to go, so I can do that.
Very kind. Yeah,
big thanks again to Freya for giving up her time, because she did it on a work break. She had a little chat with me, which is really, really appreciated. And it's a weird one, isn't it? Because it could potentially have been an even bigger game if Barrow got a couple more results in recent fixtures, haven't they, Dan? But they've kind of been they went on a really decent run of form, and then they've sort of been hit and miss, haven't they, in recent weeks? So that win a game, then they lose, don't they? So it's kind of like it's unlikely that they're going to be in the playoffs now, isn't it? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, the 7 points behind, 3 games to go, and the absolute killer is we've just talked about goal differences earlier. I think they're -2, -3, so it's highly. Don't get me wrong. While it's still possible, it's possible, but you would go 1 to 100. It isn't happening.
Yeah, not looking likely. Their main aim this weekend is to get a bit of revenge for the 5-1. I think it's probably fair to say, and put a dent in our promotion hopes. And in the end, try and finish as high as they can. If they can finish in 9th place at the end of the season, they'd look at that and think that's a fantastic campaign, surely, wouldn't they?
Yeah. They've certainly improved on last season. Pete Wild obviously has his ideas. He's been very well backed. He's.
I think it's probably fair, for the crowds they get. They're clearly probably spending a bit more than they're getting in income, aren't they? And that's inevitable, because they've got to try and establish themselves as a league club, haven't they?
Yeah. No, I'm not the biggest fan of Barrow. Everyone knows that, but bloody hell, give me a Barrow over a Crawley or Stevenage any day of the week. You know, with no disrespect to those clubs, but there's less and less northern clubs. Some of them, and any that come up, fair play. Look, we know they've got limited scope with Holker St. From reading their forum this week, that is work scheduled to slightly improve the away and make it a little bit bigger, which will help.
I think it's going to be up to 900, isn't it? Which is probably quite
900.
Which, to be fair, for them,
I think there should be a league rule that you should be able, regardless of your league size, to give 1,000 tickets in this day and age.
I feel like 900 is probably about reasonable for Barrow, because outside of us and maybe a couple of the bigger northern clubs, you're not going to get huge followings there simply because of the distance. I imagine Stevenage on the last day might struggle to sell out the away in there because it's such a distance.
I don't think they'll sell out. Never mind struggle to sell out. I just don't think they'll sell out.
I think it's going to be a real challenge. They're probably put off as well by the farce was the game there last season where there was like a electrical failure, wasn't there? I think near the ground, and the game ended up kicking off about 5:00. And a lot of fans missed their trains home and things like that. Right, well, let's get on to it then, Dan. Referee for this one's James Bell from South Yorkshire. It's his first season as an EFL referee, and he's actually started refereeing in the Championship this season. So he's someone clearly who's been sort of fast-tracked, isn't he? To be like a higher-level referee. It's kind of one you probably think he's probably going to be refereeing in the Premier League in the next couple of years. That or he'll be working as a VAR official and we'll lose another decent referee, won't we? He appears to have had a couple of injury issues this year, though, because he's sort of working his way back at League 2 level right now. Because I think there was a stretch of about 2 or 3 months where he just didn't referee a single game. He also actually occasionally takes refereeing games in the Women's Super League. So, like I said, he's clearly rated at a decent level. This season, he's taken charge of 15 games so far, handing out 51 yellows and 3 red cards. And last season, he handed out 118 yellows and 3 red cards in 37 games. The last United game he actually took charge of was the 2-0 defeat at Bradford on the final day of last season. But his last 2 games of the EFL last season were actually United games, bizarrely. Because the one he took before that was the 2-1 win over Northampton, famously where Fraser Horsfall lost his head, didn't he, and handled it in the last minute for no reason. Bizarre decision by him, but there you go. Head-to-head record, it's the...
A decision that ultimately cost them promotion.
Yeah, it did indeed. And obviously he got his big move to Stockport in the summer for probably a lot more money, I think it's fair to say. 67th meeting between the two sides. United got 26 wins. There's 18 draws and 22 wins for the Bluebirds. Talk about Barrow then, Dan. Quite a lot of recruitment done in the summer by Pete Wild. Some interesting signings were in there. Interesting to note, I've got this down as one of the in the talking points, that actually, of the 13 players they signed last summer, 7 have already left the club either permanently or on loan. So it's quite a churn of players, isn't it, for them?
Yeah, definitely. I did notice that myself in January, when the window shuts and you sort of have a look at who's coming in, you think, hang on, didn't he only go there earlier, I mean, the obvious one in that list is Richie Bennett.
Yeah, and Billy Waters as well. I mean, Billy Waters is an unavoidable one because Wrexham have just come in and thrown money, and there's clearly a release clause in there, isn't there? So they can't keep hold of it.
Some of them, the likes of ex-Blues in Brown and Ellis, probably should have went in the summer, really.
It's a tough one for them, isn't it? Because they've come up probably a lot quicker than they expected into league football, haven't they? And they're not quite ready for it in terms of the wider size of the club, are they? Because they haven't got an academy. So in an ideal world, they have an academy similar to ours. So they've got these young players coming through from Lancashire and South Cumbria that basically would be the squad filler players, wouldn't they? Players who can come in and sit on the bench and stuff like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and listeners, please do, because I'm sure I heard on Radio Cumbria the other week.
They're getting a B team.
Something about they're looking at an under 21 stroke B team.
Yeah, they are.
But it'll be based in Barrow, which
I think
because
the players will still be based in Manchester, apparently. Because Pete Wild,
I
heard.
I was going to say, because the first team obviously trained Manchester way. So.
No, I think they're going to try and get a couple of local players involved still, but they will be based in Manchester for training and stuff. I think that there was basically. I heard Pete Wild do an interview on the radio. I think about it before one of our games. It's they're in that situation out there where they haven't got those young, so they're having to fill the squad with a lot of just standard league players. And because you can only have so many games and they don't have a reserve team, those players are going to get frustrated after a bit, aren't they? So they probably that's why they've ended up sending out so many on loan or let players go to other clubs. So that's the challenge they've got. Apparently they're down to a bare 17 for this weekend's game. That's all they've got. So, because they've got so many players out on loan, they've let so many players go. It's a challenge for them, isn't it? I think that getting that B team is probably going to be a big step forward for them, I think, in terms of getting those players regular games, and actually might work quite well for us because we could maybe play a couple of friendlies against them and stuff, and you get competitive games then, don't you? Compare against some of the friendlies we've had, in the past. So you've always been of the opinion we should have a reserve team, aren't you, Dan?
I think all Football League teams should have some form of reserve team. I think it's just a level of professionalism that should be there.
Yeah. Just the way football has changed down the years, isn't it? Because all the top flight clubs now stockpile so many players, it's difficult for clubs at our level to have reserve teams because they just get picked off the first team players, don't they? So there you go. I mean, looking through the squad, Dan, January arrivals, a couple of interesting ones in there. Rory Feely in from Bohemians, brother of Kevin, but best not remembered really, isn't he?
Jed
Garner's one that stands out because they signed him from Fleetwood at the same time pretty much we signed Joe Garner, didn't they? Yeah. And they played a club record fee for him, which I don't think was a massive amount because I think their club record was only about 20,000, I think, wasn't it? Back from the original Football League days. So
Jed Garner's one of them who's been at Fleetwood for years, and he's only 24.
He scored
and
a few goals.
He's got a few. He had loans,
Well, they let
FC United, Gated and that.
They let him go,
and
didn't they, originally?
Yeah, he's never really got settled at Fleetwood despite being there years.
Yeah.
He never nailed a place down.
They originally had him and they released him, and then he came back and trained with him, I think, in that summer, and then they re-signed him again. He actually started scoring a few goals. So
yeah, but was it not something like he went to Gateshead as a free agent and then actually went back on loan for Fleetwood to
I don't
Gateshead
think it
or
was
something.
even that. I think it was just a case of they let him go, and then suddenly at the start of the season they got him back in and they signed him, and he actually scored a few goals. Very unusual one, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, they made quite a few signs this summer. I think Ben Whitfield at first looked like a really exciting signing. He was right up there with Moxon, wasn't he, with assists, but then he sort of dropped. I think he got an injury and he sort of dropped out of the team and didn't play as much. I think the ones they pick out as star men or players who've done really well are Sam McLennan, who's on loan from Chelsea, and Harrison Neal, who's on loan from Sheffield United too. I think that they really, really rate.
No, Garner was only ever on a loan deal to Gateshead.
Okay, yeah, good.
They got extended.
Yeah, so like I said, like those two, the loanees from Chelsea and Sheffield United are two of the better players for them, I think, aren't they? I think they're the ones who really rate. I mean, among the others, they signed obviously Tyler Warren, who was with Pete Wild at Halifax, wasn't he? But a lot of the rest, like you said, they've already gone. I mean, Jordan Stevens has gone to Yeovil. Not a great move for him, is it really, in the end?
No,
Miles
really.
Kenlock's gone to Aldershot already, and again, he's one potentially going to be possibly going down. But a lot of the rest have gone out on loan to non-league clubs, haven't they? They've got. I'm looking at it here. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players out on loan at the moment.
Yeah.
So, in fact, yeah, they've got 7 players out on loan. So, yeah, it kind of feels like they've had a big squad, and to keep those players happy, they've just sent them out on loan.
There's only Joe Grayson stayed at the same level, and he doesn't feature that much at the moment.
That's a strange move, wasn't it, to Stockport? Like, I think someone said that it might have been a move connected to the move for someone else moved, didn't they? I can't remember. Newby, yeah.
Is it Newby?
Newby coming from because he's a local Elliot Newby, isn't he? He started out at Barrow and he's obviously ended up back there.
I think he's only actually been on the bench for Stockport. I don't think he's actually played for them.
No. I think he just squad fill. I think they had an injury to Horsfall, didn't they? And I think that he was ready to fill the space there. Looking at the squad overall, Dan, who are the men that stand out to you there?
The obvious starting point is Paul Farman in goal.
Yeah. Hot and cold, isn't he, really, for them? Much more than he was. For us, he was pretty consistent, mostly.
Their fans seem to have a bit of a love-hate relationship with him, from what I've read previously. Niall Canavan was a good signing.
Yeah.
Patrick Brough, I've always liked Brough. He's a good left back.
Not played as much for them, is he? He plays sort of left back or
been in and out a bit, hasn't
or
he?
in the sort of Jon Mellish left-sided centre-back role, isn't he? And he's out of contract at the end of the season, so I'd be interested to see, because it sounds like there's some other clubs.
I quite like Gotts as well. I quite like Gotts.
Yeah, Gotts is a pretty decent player.
And obviously, Josh Gordon's produced for them up front, hasn't he? So
I mean, when you look at it, actually, we're looking at the squad here, Dan. It's a very small squad, isn't it? You can see why they're struggling. And fair play to them. To be right up there with a squad that small is actually quite impressive, isn't it? I mean, yeah, Pete Wild, the manager, he's undoubtedly done an impressive job, hasn't he? To pick up a squad that had 2 really tough first seasons in the Football League, and to turn it around that quickly, and had them in second place at one point early in the season, dropped off a bit, which I kind of think was inevitable, really, wasn't it? I don't think they could ever really keep up that momentum. He is quite an emotional guy, though, isn't he? He's been prone to a few outbursts on the radio after games this season. I've noticed that from listening to, almost picking fights with his own fans, isn't he, really, about stuff? And it's kind of like, there's the difference between him and Simmo. Simmo, very experienced, isn't he? He knows he keeps his emotions in check much more. I think Wild's very much learning about that, isn't he, at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. He's very, like I say, he's very emotional, very raw, and that'll probably calm down with the EFL experience.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? Yeah. So in terms of the visit this weekend, we're going to be in that away end again, aren't we?
Yeah.
I don't want to be too harsh, but it probably is the worst away end in the Football League, I reckon. Harrogate's not great because it's a very shallow terrace and you really can't see a huge amount going forward. But you can still see both goals in some way, shape or form. Whereas it doesn't seem to matter where you stand. If you arrive a little bit late and you're not standing at the front, we struggled to see the far goal, and we were on the side where the floodlight is. And we were only one place back from the front, and me and Greg, one of us could see Gibson hit the ball and one of us could see the ball hit the back of the net. but we couldn't see both, which is mad. And you were behind the goal. I don't think you saw Dennis's goal hit the back of the net, did you?
Well, did, but the neck craning was at a ridiculous angle and hanging off a crush barrier with the neck craned. It wasn't exactly comfortable.
Yeah. We did say before, and this is something that's been confirmed, they have got plans to improve the away end for next season. It's going to be increased to 900. I think they're basically just knocking that bit down, aren't they? And putting a sort of semi-temporary stand, similar to what you see at like Salford and places like that there, I think, possibly. I mean, I don't get why they didn't just do that with the Holker Street end in the first place, really, because it's... I can get why they wanted to put a roof in to make it a bit more appealing, but for me, that roof's just ruined it because of the huge concrete support posts and things that are in place because of it. You know, it's a real shame for them. But
could have been better going down the Salford route.
Yeah, knocking down the sections of it and rebuilding. And the challenge they've got as well is behind the opposite goal, because of the building that's there, which is the main social club and stuff, isn't it? That where the club offices are. They can't really knock that down at the moment, so they can't do anything at that end, which I'm sure they'd love to do at some point. So there you go.
Make a proper home end out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in terms of
or away end,
yeah, exactly. In terms of their form at home, very good. They haven't lost in the last 6 at Holker Street, so it's not going to be a pushover, is it? It's going to be a challenge. We have to really dig in for this one, I think. Let's talk about United then, Dan. So let's start with the big question that we sort of mentioned earlier. Stick with 3-5-2 or do you go 4-3-3 like we finished the game?
I think we'll start 3-5-2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at some point we transition to the 4-3-3.
Would you do that personally?
Depending on how the game's going.
Would you do that personally though?
I would like to see us start with the 4-3-3 and just go for it. But I don't think that'll happen away from home.
That's what I differ. I think we stick with it. I personally think we stick with the 3-5-2. And the reason is, if you stick with basically the way we played it with Gibson in midfield so you can switch, right? Barrow are going to know in the back of the heads that switch is coming at some point. And that puts some doubt into your mind. If you start with it, you can prepare for it. You can go, right, yeah, we know they're playing that. Okay, we'll be able to counter it. Whereas if they know in the back of the heads, all right, start with the 3, but potentially they're going to go to the 4-3-3 at some point. That creates a bit of chaos.
We should send Mellish up on a couple of dummy runs early.
Yeah, or just keep switching him in there without telling them, and they'll be like, what the
Chuck him in for a couple of minutes and drop back, and
exactly. Yeah, that would be a good way of doing it.
God help anyone who's tasked with mad marking.
It would be a nightmare, wouldn't it? It would be a nightmare. Yeah, so I think we're sort of in agreement that I don't think there's a wrong answer to it, really, is there? I think either way works fine. I think I can get why he wants to go 3 at the back because it's worked.
The question is Barkley straight back in?
Yeah, so this is the big question in defence. Does Barkley come in or does Willian keep his place? Now, if you're going to go 4-3-3, I think I'd stick with Whelan, personally. If you're going to go 4-3-3, I'd stick with him in there with Senior at right back. If you're going to go to the 3 at the back, I'd be tempted to put Barkley as your wing back again, like he did in the home game against Barrow, and maybe drop Senior out, which might seem a bit harsh, but he struggled a bit in the first half with the wing back role, didn't he, against everything, which he's shown himself good at in the past, but he wasn't particularly great at it in the game against Stockport. He was much better at right back. I was quite impressed with him at right back in the game. So what would you go with, Dan?
I think we'll stay the 3-5-2, and I think Barkley will come in for Whelan.
Yeah. I think you're probably right with that one, and Whelan drops to the bench maybe rather than.
And I think at some point we'll go to the 4-3-3, and it wouldn't surprise to see Patrick and Gordon both either side of a striker.
Yeah, maybe Gibson. I feel like in a away game, Gibson's really good outlet in that because he used the ball so well. I think in midfield, I'd stick with that 3 again. I think they did enough. There is a question maybe away from home. Would you rather have McCallum in there if it's going to be a bit of a battle? Would you stick with it?
We shouldn't be playing afraid though either.
No, that's a fair point.
Especially after that second half.
And obviously Gibson scored there last season, didn't he, as well? And I think he on the break, he's a great player to have because he's improved so much at carrying the ball up the pitch, actually. in terms of getting a really good distance. I think I'd stick with the midfield three again. It attacks the question. Dennis and Gordon, stick with them?
Yeah, why not?
It's going to be a physical battle, and I think Gordon's well up for that, isn't he? So I'd be quite comfortable with that. So
in fact, you can probably call the subs now. The likely subs are Edmondson for Dennis and Patrick for Gibson, possibly, depending how he's playing.
You wouldn't like to introduce Joe Garner into a battle of a Cumbrian Derby?
Maybe.
There. But in terms of the subs who actually, the 7 subs, Taylor Charles chomping at the bit to come back, you maybe put him on there?
Possibly, maybe a week early, save him for the home game and stuff.
Possibly, yeah, maybe. It's one of those ones, I think, if we win and it's looking, if we draw maybe, and it's then looking like it's going to be the playoffs, maybe you then use charters in that one and rest a couple of players. I don't think there's any situation really where playoffs are secured until after the Salford game, I think, possibly. Obviously, Salford being key because they'll be one of the teams chasing us. So in terms of predictions, Stan, what are we going for?
3-0.
Oh, wow. You're only going for 3, not 8 this time.
No, we're away. I'm being sensible.
Okay.
I wasn't far off because we got 5 last time.
Well, I said that in the chat with Freya. I said, Dan said 8-0 last time, and he was getting excited when we got scoring all the goals.
Because I actually backed the 6, didn't I?
You did, actually. You did, yeah.
Remember
that.
3-0. Christian Dennis is going to get his 20th league goal. Yeah. I think Jordan Gibson's going to get a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think J.K. Gordon's going to score a wonder solo goal and run to the adoring faithful who sing there's only one team in Cumbria for the rest of the game.
I'm going to go for... I'm going to go 3-1, I think. And I reckon... it's annoying because you picked some of the scores I wanted there. I'm going to go for a J.K. Gordon goal as well. Jon Mellish. No, not Jon Mellish, actually. Paul Huntington. So J.K. Gordon, Paul Huntington, and Ryan Edmondson to get the other one. That's what I'm going to go for. Here's Mike's prediction.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 win with goals from Jon Mellish and Christian Dennis.
This is a good mix of scores amongst our predictions this weekend. Right, Dan. It's X-Files time. We did say it was a combined one from the midweek and the weekend last weekend. We'll find something out about the midweek in a minute, though, won't we? So let's get going.
Going back to last weekend, first up, James Tavernier missed a penalty. Failed to score from the spot in Rangers' 5-2 win over St Mirren. Jerry Yates scored for Blackpool, big 1-0 win at home to Wigan.
Well, funny, on this one, I got the train up obviously for the Northampton game last weekend, and I got what is basically the express service from Liverpool that only stops at Huyton, St Helens, Wigan, but then it goes on to Blackpool North. And as it arrived into Wigan, when I got off to get my train up to Carlisle, I saw it coming onto the platform, and the platform was rammed, and I was like, where are Wigan playing today? They're Preston. Then I realised they're at Blackpool. So they're all coming onto my train, carrying crates of beers and stuff. And like literally, I was at the door and I managed to get off, but before anyone else could get off, they just piled on. And the platform absolutely reeked of beer the second I got off. There was just bottles everywhere and stuff. Yeah, that would be one hell of an away day. I think it's fair to say Wigan at Blackpool that weekend. But there you go.
Jack Marriott got a treble for Fleetwood in an action-packed 5-2 win at Accrington. Cole Stockton, not scored too many this season, but he scored on Saturday. Morecambe in a 1-0 win over Wycombe.
Big win for them.
Rod McDonald scored again for Crewe in a 2-0 win over his dad's former club, Walsall.
I didn't realise his dad was...
Walsall have fell apart since we played them,
that's just been dreadful. It's one of those things you look and you think, if we played like we did against Stockport, against Walsall and maybe Stevenage, we're probably 4 points better off now. That's the annoying thing, but there you go.
A regular in recent weeks, Jack Bridge scored not one but 2 penalties from the spot in Southend's 2-0 win over Dagenham. That's a bit of a derby, that actually. Boosted their playoff hopes. And our delve into the deepest non-league brings up Connor Simpson. Scored for Whitby Town in their 3-1 win at Atherton Colonies. On to midweek, there was 47 games in England and Scotland, and not one ex-Blue scored, sent off, or anything else.
Is that the first time that's happened?
Which is the first time that's happened, yeah. It wasn't quite a full set of games, but it wasn't far off, you know. And it's if anyone finds one we've missed, feel free to give us a tweet. Promotion relegation time of year. Unfortunately, it's 2 relegations we've got. Max Hunt relegated for Yeovil. They're going into the National League South. Their fall from the Championship continues. Yeah. And former loanee Tyrese Omotoyi, he's actually at Forest Green on loan at the moment, who relegated under Big Dunk. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there over the summer.
I think he's there permanently, isn't he? I think he signed permanently for them in January.
Did he? I thought he was alone.
I think it's permanent. I'm not sure on that, but there you
go. Yeah. Other news, Darryl Duffy was sacked as assistant manager at Stranraer. Obviously, the manager was sacked as well.
I didn't realise he was assistant manager. It's only when you sent me the thing, I was like, oh, wow, he is.
Yeah. 2 other pieces. We are merely going to report on them because it's not our place to discuss them. Those of you who read crime news, Kyle Dempsey, electronic tag curfew fine for that incident in Maryport. And Danny Graham admitted to a drink driving crash where he managed to put his car through a co-op window or something on the estate he lives in. So
not the smartest though.
Never mind.
I've just double checked there, Dan, and Tyrese Omotoyi did indeed join Forest Green permanently in January. 12 appearances, no goals. Yeah. No massive surprise, that is it really, based on what we saw. I should just ask you before we finish, Dan, because we didn't have an X-File section, I didn't actually really get a chance to say this, but Jeff Jackson, big thank you to him because he's given us a little bit of an update in terms of promotions, relegation. So I'm just going to read them. I'm just trying to load up the message he sent me, but it's taking forever to load now. Here we go. Right, okay. So this is an update from the Lowland League, where obviously Lewis Bell's been on loan at Gretna. So Dalbeattie start and now confirmed as the bottom of the Lowland League. However, if Spartans go up and Elgin go down, Dalbeattie won't be relegated. Unlike most divisions that fill from below when they have additional space, the Lowland League just doesn't bother with relegation. Also, if Albion Rovers / Bonnyrigg Rovers come down and Bucky Thistle and Brechin win the playoff, both Edinburgh Uni and Dalbeattie will go down. Try and make sense of that. But it's basically because of the Highland and the Lowland and all that stuff in Scotland, it just gets very, very complicated.
Yeah.
It's hard to work out. I should say as well, Penrith, we haven't really any players there this season, but they're safe for another year from relegation. It seems to be an ongoing battle for them, doesn't it? Really, to stay up every season.
Yeah.
Later. There you go. And that's it, Dan. There you go. We're done for another episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thanks for all your contributions and things you send in to us. It's always really appreciated. Next week, we need to work out what we're going to do, don't we, in terms of a preview for the Salford game. I think it's getting quite exciting now. We probably won't have a behind enemy lines for that one because Salford do not have any fans on the internet, as we found that out many times, despite every time we ask them. And then we'll be preparing for the Sutton game. We've already lined up doing the opposition bit for that one, so that should be quite good. But yeah, squeaky bum time, isn't it?
Yeah, have we got a Salford fan?
No, we haven't got a Salford fan. We never do. No. Never do. But there you go. So that's it. Thanks everyone for joining us, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.